Hey, welcome to Life After Addiction and Indictment. I'm your host, Steve Cloward. This afternoon, hey, I've been thinking a lot about, you know, what it is that has held me back, what it is that when I've had success allowed me to be successful. And, it really comes down to what I would call the three D's. And first thing is decisions. When we're faced with certain things, whether it's adversity, whatever it is in our lives, how do we choose to deal with them? What is the decision we make? Recently, the past 4 months, I've had some pretty big ups and downs in one of my businesses that had really been on autopilot for really the past year, generating a lot of income and was only requiring me, really 5 or 6 hours worth of work, if that, a week. Mainly it was just submitting, the weekly direct deposits to the affiliates I had that were working for this business. And we ran into two major problems over the last 4 months that were out of my control that caused those businesses to get stopped right in their tracks. We couldn't continue because the company that I was working through, that my affiliates were selling through, they had problems with the relationship as a dealer through these different companies. And so there's lessons to be learned there that's really another topic, but I'll hit on it briefly. And that is, in business, you want to be in a situation where you can control everything about that business. So in other words, you don't want to rely on somebody else's company, or you don't want to have your own company if you're approved to sell certain things through other service providers or companies that have a product that could go under or maybe don't deliver on the products you sell. There's two reasons for that, because like I said, they can just disappear or they can terminate you. But on top of that, you're not in full control from a customer service standpoint of how you can take care of your customer if you're relying on somebody else on the back end, whether it be to ship something or provide a product, or whether it be the service that you sell. So if you're selling somebody's service and that customer calls, but you're not the actual company, let's use for an example in this situation, let's use a home security service, for example. You're selling their service, but you're not the company yourself. You don't have your internal people who are the customer support. All you are is kind of a third party middle person that they allow to you to sell their service. They pay a commission, but you can't control their technicians. You can't even coordinate directly with their technicians. And that's a bad spot to be in because, like I said, what if they have problems? What if they go under? But if the customer has a problem, they're going to call you, the person who set them up with the business, but yet you really don't have any control to solve certain problems. So you don't want to get in that situation. So decisions, how do we react? What decisions do we make in our lives each day? Because I'm a big believer that everything, there's some of you that aren't going to like to hear this because I didn't like to hear it years ago. But once I decided to hear it and embrace it, everything shifted for me, because I believe that every decision we make is a direct result of the things that we have or don't have in our lives. If you're unhappy in a relationship, if you're struggling in business, whatever the situation is, you need to take extreme ownership and look at things and realize that you are at the spot you are at right now because of choices you've made to that point in your life. See, if you've listened to my podcast in the past, you know that I ended up in federal prison. And I've often said that decisions that I made and actions I took in my addiction, which had nothing to do with why I went to prison. I wasn't even, actively using when that indictment went down. So I've always said there's things I did in my addiction that certainly would have put me in jail, but the federal conspiracy charge I got thrown into with my appraisal firm, there was nothing I did to break a law to put me there. However, I had to own the fact that I made the decision for my office to do appraisals for somebody, even though they weren't fraudulent, even the appraisals, for somebody that I knew was doing something I didn't totally understand when it came to a double close on a transaction where technically there was a straw buyer. Back in the day when this was going on in 07 and 08, everyone was calling them investors, which was the way that they positioned things. But as I learned and went through the experience I went through, I realized that was technically a straw buyer, the investor, which was the person buying the home that was being sold. So they were closing at the same time. The sell would take place, and they would then have the purchase immediately right after, using the proceeds and the equity on the deal to be pulled out on the second transaction that took place. Anyway, that's neither here nor there right now. So decisions, we have to focus on the decisions we're making in our lives and realize that where we're at is a direct result of those, good, bad, or ugly. And then the second D is our decisions can determine our destiny. Those are actually the 3 Ds that I was going to speak of. But it's really the biggest piece to that is that first D, those decisions, the choices we make. That's what's going to determine our destiny. Because if we're living, and I'm speaking to this on experience because I missed it. Wow, totally missed it. It was today's September 23rd, and it was literally 8 days ago, 11 years ago, that I got out of prison, September 15th, 2010. I didn't even, it was the first year I've missed it since I got out, which is a good sign. But the decisions I made ended up creating the destiny that I had in that situation. But for the first 8.5, almost 9 years since I got out of prison 11 years and 8 days ago, I was living in scarcity. And so I was making decisions every single day that was holding me back to reach the success that I had had in my life prior to that taking place in my life 11 years ago when it was 12 years ago that I ended up going to prison. It's July 1st of 2009. So until I was able to own where I was at and not blame anyone else on decisions I had made, did things change for me. I sat in a victim stance for 8+ years, and that caused me to stay in a scarcity stance. And I wondered why I wasn't having success that I used to have. So if you're struggling, the first thing you need to do is ask yourself, are you owning where you're at? Can you see that the decisions you've made in your life to that point have put you where you're at right now at this time in your life? Because once you can do that, and once you stop blaming other people, once you stop being a victim, then you take your power back and you take control. And then you'll find that you'll start to have little wins. See, oftentimes the thing that held me back really was lacking the confidence. But because I had had a lot of success, I forgot that that took time. And I expected it to just happen, quickly. But that's not the way it happens. And so I didn't focus on what I did today. I was looking to the future and thinking that what I can do today will get me there tomorrow. And that is just not reality. It's just not ever going to happen that way. And so I wasn't doing the little things each day that allowed me to get little wins each day in order to create and build and compound those wins to create confidence. So look at what you're doing each day. Look at the decisions you're making. Have you decided to set goals? Have you decided with the goals you've set what you have to do each day in order to accomplish the outcome you want that week, which will move you that much closer to the goal that you're looking for? If not, that's what you need to do. You need to make a decision right now and decide, number one, what it is you want, why you want it, and then what do you need to do each day to move yourself forward to achieving that goal. Decide, make that decision right now. I mean, literally pause this and ask yourself, have you made a decision on what it is you want? See, most often we just go through life and take what life brings us. Right now is such a great time. Well, it's a sad time, but it's such a great example of how people just go through life, take what it gives them, and frankly, don't even think for themselves and just follow what they're told through media. And that is so sad and pathetic because we're at a time right now in our world, and this is a different subject, but I got to tie it in because no one's making a decision. They're just doing and following and not thinking. Making a decision to think for yourself. That's a decision that you need to make because too many people right now don't even have a clue that there has been a war raging like crazy. But yet the mainstream media suppresses it all. And that war is between good and evil. It's about dividing us as human beings, as brothers and sisters, dividing us by who's vaccinated, who's not, who's willing to wear a mask, who's not, dividing us through race and all this other BS that it's just false BS narratives. But if people would stop and just stop following along and putting poison into their body and doing their own research, thinking for themselves and doing some research, there wouldn't be very many people that had different opinions on being vaxxed or not. Because enough time has passed now that is coming to the forefront. MSM can no longer suppress it because too much is happening that it can't be hidden anymore. That the vax is 100% a bioweapon. You don't have MS-102, graphene oxide, mRNA in a, first of all, there is no vaccine, so let's be clear there. We have an emergency use gene therapy is what we have. Who in their right mind, if they think for themselves and don't just follow the narrative, that I get it, man. I get why people do that. This has been decades in the making. The evil that's behind all of this has been putting out propaganda for decades and decades through TV, advertising, movies, you name it. So I get it. But it's time to decide that you're not going to just follow blindly. You're going to think for yourself. You deserve that. We are all created in the image of our maker, our God. And this is a time of a great awakening, not only awakening to what's been going on and how we, the human race, have been enslaved by an evil cabal for over 1,400 years. It's time to think. It's time to decide. So decisions define our destiny. Is your decision about what's come out and showing that COVID was just COVID? Yes, it's a bad common cold because it's man-made and there's things in it that definitely can cause death. It certainly isn't a pandemic, but it certainly can be taken care of so easily. But they suppressed that and hid that. There's no disputing that. I don't care if you're listening and you think I'm nuts because you've been so brainwashed. You're one of the intellects that have the hardest time seeing things that are common, because common sense makes a lot of this pretty simple to see. So are you going to be that person that continues to make decision not to do what you need to protect yourself from what maybe is put in your body? I do believe some of them were probably intercepted and hopefully got saline put in them. I think the J&J jab, which I believe is stopped now, wasn't as deadly, but who knows? All I know is the Pfizer is brutal for most people. There's way more deaths than COVID. It's just suppressed and hidden. So determine that you're going to make decisions and create the destiny that you want. You're not going to have a destiny because the decisions you've made in your life, whether it be for business or otherwise, are because it's what the masses are doing. It's what we've been taught / programmed to do. You deserve better. We all deserve better. I wish you all the best of luck. I know the power of the decisions we make because I can look back on my life and see that no doubt everything that took place, times of my life, correlated directly with choices I made. So if you've been following along, just doing what other people do, whether it be in business or in life with current times of vaccine, it's time to decide you're going to do what's best for you. And you're not going to let the rat race suck you in to where you think you're too busy or too tired to spend the time to research for yourself, to learn what is best for you, regardless of what other people tell you. God bless you. Have a great week.